A 7-year-old deaf girl sits alone at a kitchen table in suburban Connecticut. The morning light filters through white curtains. Her name is Emma Carson. She has never heard her mother's voice. She has never heard a television. She has never heard the word terrorism. But her small hands move across paper with terrifying precision, sketching something she should not know. 2 towers, black smoke, a plane frozen mid-collision. Her mother walks into the room carrying breakfast and drops the plate. Glass shatters. Emma doesn't hear it. She keeps drawing. Her mother's hands shake as she taps Emma's shoulder. The girl looks up with eyes too old for her face. She signs something slowly. Her mother reads the words forming in the air between them. I was there. I remember dying. The woman's blood goes cold. Emma has been kept away from news, from history, from tragedy. She was born 3 years after September 11th, 2001. She has no way of knowing what those towers mean, but somehow, impossibly, she does. Before we continue, subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. You're about to witness something that will change everything you believe about life, death, and what comes after. 2 years earlier, when Emma was only 5 years old, the nightmares began. She would wake up screaming silently, her mouth open in a cry no one could hear. Her parents, David and Claire Carson, would rush into her room to find her drenched in sweat, signing frantically in the dark. The signs made no sense. Plane, fire, sky, fall. They thought it was just childhood fear, the kind of abstract terror that visits all children in the night. But the dreams didn't stop. They grew more specific, more detailed, more real. Emma started drawing during the day, filling page after page with the same images: buildings, smoke, people falling through the air like dark rain. Her parents took the drawings away, thinking it would help. It didn't. She drew on the walls. She drew on windows. She drew in the dirt outside. The images were always the same, always precise, always terrifying. Claire Carson sat across from her daughter one October morning, watching her draw. The kitchen smelled like coffee and fear. Emma's pencil moved in steady strokes, creating shadows and depth that no 5-year-old should be capable of rendering. Claire had been an art teacher before Emma was born. She knew talent when she saw it. But this wasn't talent. This was memory. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Emma wasn't imagining these images. She was remembering them. But how? Claire reached out and took the drawing, studying it closely. The perspective was wrong for someone on the ground. It was the view from above, from inside something, from inside a building looking out at another building, from a window seat. Claire's hands began to tremble. She pulled out her phone and searched for images of the World Trade Center attacks. She had never shown Emma these images. She had never spoken about that day in front of her. Emma had been completely sheltered from it. But when Claire held her phone next to Emma's drawing, the match was undeniable. The angle, the smoke pattern, the exact moment of impact. That night, Claire told her husband what she had discovered. David Carson was a rational man, a software engineer who believed in data and logic. He dismissed his wife's concerns as pattern recognition, the human brain's tendency to see connections where none existed, but Claire insisted. She showed him the drawings. She showed him the photographs. She watched his face change from skepticism to confusion to something darker, fear. He sat down heavily at the kitchen table and stared at the drawings spread before him like evidence at a crime scene. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then David did something that surprised them both. He pulled Emma onto his lap and began to sign questions to her. Simple questions at first. What do you see in your dreams? The girl's small hands moved in response. Buildings, very tall, windows everywhere. He continued, are you inside or outside? Inside, high up. Can you see anything else? She paused, her face scrunching in concentration. A man next to me, crying, praying. David's throat tightened. Do you know where you are? Emma's hands formed the words slowly, carefully. An airplane, going to California. Her parents stared at each other across their daughter's head. Neither of them had ever mentioned California. Neither of them had ever discussed flight paths or destinations from that day. But Emma knew. Over the following weeks, David began researching. He worked late into the night, going through passenger manifests, survivor testimonies, cockpit recordings, anything he could find about the 4 planes from September 11th. He cross-referenced Emma's details with documented facts. She had mentioned a seat number once, signing it casually while eating breakfast, 14C. David's search led him to United Airlines Flight 175, the second plane to hit the towers. Seat 14C had been occupied by a woman named Sarah Mitchell, 29 years old, traveling alone to Los Angeles for her sister's wedding. She died instantly on impact. David showed Claire what he had found. They sat together in the blue glow of his computer screen, reading about a woman who had been dead for years, a woman their daughter claimed to have been. The details matched. Everything matched. The seat location, the destination. Even small things Emma had mentioned, things that seemed meaningless at the time. The smell of coffee, the sound of crying, the feeling of the plane turning. All of it was documented in the final minutes of Flight 175. All of it was real. All of it was impossible. Claire made a decision that changed everything. She called a researcher at Yale University who specialized in cases of past life memories in children. Dr. James Whitmore had spent 30 years documenting cases where young children spontaneously recalled details of previous lives, details they had no way of knowing. He was skeptical by nature, trained to look for fraud and false memories. But when Claire described Emma's case, something in her voice made him listen. He agreed to meet with them. The appointment was scheduled for a Friday afternoon in November. The drive to New Haven took 2 hours. Emma sat in the back seat, looking out the window at the grey Connecticut landscape rolling past. She seemed calm, too calm, like she knew where they were going and why. Dr. Whitmore's office was in an old building near campus, filled with books and files and photographs of children from around the world. He greeted them warmly, then knelt down to Emma's level and signed a simple hello. The girl's eyes widened in surprise. Not many people outside her family knew sign language. She signed back, and something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, trust. The interview lasted 3 hours. Dr. Whitmore asked Emma questions through an interpreter, documenting everything she signed. He showed her photographs of different planes, different airports, different cities. Emma identified the Boeing 767 immediately. She pointed to images of Boston Logan Airport without hesitation. When shown pictures of various people, she stopped at one photograph and held it for a long time. Her small finger traced the face of a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who had died in seat 14C. Emma began to sign rapidly, tears streaming down her face. The interpreter translated, "She says this is her. Before. She says she remembers the earrings, pearl earrings, a gift from her sister." Dr. Whitmore's professional composure cracked for just a moment. He pulled out his research file on Sarah Mitchell. Among the personal effects recovered from the crash site were a pair of pearl earrings mentioned in the family's victim impact statement. Emma had no way of knowing this. No one outside the immediate family and the investigation team knew about those earrings. Yet she knew. As winter approached, Emma's behavior changed. She became withdrawn, spending hours staring out windows as if watching for something. She stopped drawing the towers and started drawing something else. A young woman standing in a doorway, looking back, looking at Emma, looking at the future. Claire found these new drawings disturbing in a different way. They suggested consciousness, intent, purpose, as if Sarah Mitchell hadn't just died and accidentally left memories behind in a new body, as if she had chosen to come back, as if she had chosen Emma specifically. One December night, during a heavy snowstorm, Emma woke her parents at 3 a.m. She stood at the foot of their bed, illuminated by the hallway light, signing something over and over. They need to know. They need to know. They need to know. David turned on the lamp, blinking sleep from his eyes. "No what, sweetheart?" Emma's face was grave, ancient in the shadows. "That I came back for a reason, that I have something unfinished, that September 11th wasn't the end of the story." Her parents looked at each other with growing dread. What could possibly be unfinished about a terrorist attack that killed thousands? What could a 7-year-old girl, or the soul of a dead woman, or whatever Emma was, need to accomplish? The answer would come soon enough, and it would be more terrifying than anything they had imagined. Dr. Whitmore calls the Carson family on a Tuesday morning in January. His voice on the phone sounds different, urgent, frightened. He has found something that changes everything. He needs them to come to Yale immediately. Claire's hands shake as she hangs up. Within an hour they are in the car, driving through winter rain that drums against the windshield like distant warnings. Emma sits in the back seat, perfectly still, her eyes focused on something no one else can see. She knows what Dr. Whitmore has found. She has always known. The memories are becoming clearer now, rising to the surface like bodies from deep water. By the time they reach his office, the rain has turned to sleet. Dr. Whitmore meets them at the door, his face pale. He looks like a man who has seen something that has fundamentally altered his understanding of reality. He leads them inside without small talk, without his usual warmth. The office feels different today, colder, darker, like a place where impossible things are about to be proven true. Dr. Whitmore spreads documents across his desk with shaking hands. Passenger manifests, flight recordings, personal testimonies from families. But there is something else, something new, a video file loaded on his computer screen, the play button waiting like a loaded gun. He looks at Claire and David, then at Emma. "I need your permission to show this to her," he signs, and speaks simultaneously. Once she sees this, there's no going back. David wants to say no. Every protective instinct in his body screams at him to take his daughter and leave. But Claire understands. This is why Emma came back. This is why she remembers. She nods. Dr. Whitmore presses play. The video is footage from inside the North Tower, filmed by a person who survived. It shows the moment the second plane hit the South Tower. The sound is devastating, people screaming, metal tearing, the world ending in real time. Emma watches without looking away. Her small hands grip the armrests of her chair. When the video ends, she signs 3 words that make everyone in the room go silent. "I felt that." Dr. Whitmore explains what he has discovered. In the past 3 months, there have been 7 other cases, 7 other children, all born between 2004 and 2006, all reporting memories of September 11th. Different flights, different towers, different moments of death, but all of them remember dying that day. All of them have details that match documented victims. All of them claim they came back for a reason. Dr. Whitmore has been in contact with researchers around the country. The pattern is undeniable. Something happened on September 11th, 2001, something beyond the physical destruction, some kind of collective trauma so intense that souls were displaced, scattered, forced to return in new bodies carrying memories they were never supposed to keep. Or Dr. Whitmore suggests quietly, something else entirely, something that wants to be remembered, something that needs these children to speak. Emma begins signing rapidly, her small hands moving with desperate urgency. The interpreter struggles to keep up. She says Sarah Mitchell wasn't just a random passenger. She says Sarah knew something. She saw something in the days before the flight. A man in the airport, acting strangely. She reported it to security. They ignored her. She says if they had listened, if they had investigated, they might have stopped it. She says that's what's unfinished. That's why she came back. To tell someone, to make someone listen. The room falls into shocked silence. Dr. Whitmore checks his files on Sarah Mitchell. There is nothing in the official record about a security report. Nothing about suspicious behavior. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Small reports, minor concerns, they get lost. Especially after a tragedy, when everyone is looking for answers and assigning blame. He looks at Emma with a mixture of awe and fear. "Can you describe the man?" He signs. Emma closes her eyes. When she opens them again, they are different, older, haunted. She begins to sign. The description Emma provides is disturbingly specific. Middle Eastern appearance, early 30s, wearing a dark jacket despite the summer heat, carrying a small black bag, clutching it like it contained something precious, nervous, sweating, making phone calls and looking around constantly. Sarah Mitchell had stood behind him in the security line at Logan Airport on the morning of September 11th. She had watched him argue with security about removing his shoes. She had seen him check his watch repeatedly, as if counting down to something. After she passed through security, she found a TSA officer and mentioned what she had seen. The officer had thanked her and done nothing. 20 minutes later, Sarah Mitchell boarded Flight 175. 1 hour later, she was dead. Emma's hands stop moving. She looks exhausted, as if the memory has physically drained her. Claire pulls her daughter close, but Emma's body is rigid. She is somewhere else. Somewhere dark and burning. Dr. Whitmore makes a phone call that will change everything. He contacts a journalist named Rebecca Torres, who has spent years investigating intelligence failures related to September 11th. He tells her about Emma. At first, she is skeptical. Past life memories in children. It sounds like tabloid nonsense. But when he mentions the security report, her tone changes. She has heard rumors, whispers, stories about warnings that were ignored, red flags that were dismissed. She agrees to meet Emma. The meeting takes place in a neutral location, a community center in Hartford. Rebecca Torres is a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper questions. She has a recorder, a notepad, and a deep skepticism born from years of covering wars and conspiracies. She sits across from Emma and asks through the interpreter, "Why should I believe you?" Emma's response is simple and devastating. She signs the full name of the TSA officer Sarah Mitchell spoke to that morning, a name that has never been public, a name that Rebecca Torres knows from classified documents she obtained years ago. The journalist's face goes white. "How do you know that name?" Emma signs slowly, carefully, making sure every word is clear. "Because Sarah Mitchell remembered it when she died, and now I remember it too." Rebecca Torres begins to investigate. She pulls files. She makes calls. She interviews former TSA employees from Logan Airport. Most of them are retired now, scattered across the country, but she finds the officer Emma named. His name is Dennis Crawford. He lives in Florida alone, drinking himself to death slowly. When Rebecca calls, he is drunk, but he is also honest. Yes, he remembers a woman approaching him that morning. Yes, she mentioned suspicious behavior. Yes, he dismissed it. There were 100 reports like that every day. People were paranoid. He couldn't investigate every nervous traveler. He did his job. He followed protocol. The woman got on her plane, and he forgot about her until the towers fell, until he realized that maybe, just maybe, she had seen one of the hijackers, until he understood that his dismissal, his protocol, his following of rules might have contributed to 3,000 deaths. He has lived with that possibility for 16 years. It has destroyed him. Rebecca records the entire conversation. When she asks if he would be willing to speak publicly, he says yes. He says he is ready to tell the truth. He says he has been waiting for someone to ask. The article Rebecca Torres publishes 3 weeks later sends shockwaves through the national media. 7-year-old claims past life memory of 9/11, reveals ignored warning. The story goes viral within hours. Emma's face is everywhere. Her story is dissected by believers and skeptics. Psychologists debate past life phenomena. Intelligence experts argue about security failures. Conspiracy theorists have a field day, but beneath all the noise, there is something else. Other families start coming forward. More children with impossible memories, more warnings that were ignored, more chances that were missed. It becomes clear that September 11th was not just a failure of intelligence, it was a failure of attention, a failure to listen, a failure to believe that something so terrible could really happen. And now, impossibly, the dead are coming back to make people listen. Emma is not alone. She is part of something larger, something that refuses to be forgotten. But attention has consequences. 3 days after the article publishes, the Carson family receives the first threat, an email from an anonymous account. Stop lying about 9/11. Stop using that tragedy for attention. Stop, or there will be consequences. David deletes it, but more come. Phone calls in the middle of the night. Cars driving slowly past their house, a brick through their front window with a note attached. Let the dead rest. Claire wants to stop. She wants to take Emma and disappear. But Emma refuses. She signs with fierce determination. I came back for this. I came back to tell the truth. I won't hide. Her parents look at their 7-year-old daughter and see someone much older. Someone who has already died once and is not afraid to face death again. The realization is both terrifying and inspiring. Their little girl is braver than they will ever be, because she knows something they don't. She knows that death is not the end. She knows that some things are more important than safety. She knows that truth demands sacrifice. On a cold February morning, 6 other children arrive at the Carson house. They come from different states, different backgrounds, different lives, but they all share one impossible thing. They all remember dying on September 11th, 2001. The oldest is 9, the youngest is 5. They sit in the Carson living room, an assembly of the reincarnated, the returned, the ones who remember. Their parents stand nervously in the kitchen, drinking coffee and trying to process what is happening. Dr. Whitmore is there, documenting everything. Rebecca Torres is there, recording. And Emma sits in the center of it all, the first to speak, the first to be believed, the one who started this impossible gathering. The children look at each other with recognition. They have never met before, but they know each other. They died together. They came back together, and now they are together again. The first to speak is a boy named Marcus, 8 years old, from Chicago. He was on Flight 11, the first plane to hit the North Tower. He remembers being a businessman named Robert Chen, sitting in first class, working on a laptop, annoyed at the delay. He remembers the hijackers standing up. He remembers the knife. He remembers the plane turning. He remembers seeing the tower through the window and knowing in that final second that this was not an accident. This was murder. Marcus describes his death in a flat, emotionless voice, as if reciting facts from a textbook. His mother stands in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Her son has been having nightmares since he learned to speak. Now she knows why. Next is a girl named Lily, 6 years old, from Oregon. She was in the South Tower, 81st floor, working as a financial analyst named Jennifer Wade. She remembers the first plane hitting the North Tower. She remembers everyone gathering at the windows to watch. She remembers the second plane. She remembers fire. She remembers jumping. She stops talking and stares at her hands, as if seeing them fall through empty air. One by one, the children share their memories. Each story is more heartbreaking than the last. Each death is unique and terrible. A firefighter who ran into the North Tower and never came out. A flight attendant who fought the hijackers and was killed. An office worker trapped above the impact zone who called his wife one last time. A passenger who said the Lord's Prayer with strangers as the plane fell from the sky. The children speak in voices too calm, too detached, too adult. They are not processing trauma. They are reporting facts. They are witnesses to their own murders. Dr. Whitmore records every word, every detail, every impossible memory. This is unprecedented. This is beyond any documented case of past life recall. This is something else, something he does not have words for. When all the children have spoken, Emma stands. She signs and the interpreter translates. We all came back for the same reason, to tell the truth, to show that the warnings were ignored, to prove that it could have been stopped. Dr. Whitmore asks the question everyone is thinking. Why children? Why come back as children? Emma's response is chilling. Because adults don't listen to adults. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone is trying to prove something, but children tell the truth. Children remember, children are believed. She pauses, her small hands hovering in the air, or at least they're supposed to be. The room falls silent. The logic is brutal and perfect. If souls could choose how to return, if reincarnation was a conscious process, then coming back as children would be the most effective way to be heard. Children are innocent. Children have no reason to lie. Children carry a purity that makes their testimony powerful. Emma sits back down, and the other children nod in agreement. They understand. They all understand. This was not random. This was planned. This was strategic. The dead have found a way to speak, and they are using the most powerful messengers available, the innocent. Rebecca Torres proposes an idea that terrifies everyone in the room. A public event, a press conference, all 7 children together telling their stories. The families erupt in protest. It is too dangerous. The threats have already started. The children will be targets. The scrutiny will be unbearable. But Rebecca argues that silence is more dangerous. The story is already out there, fragmentary and distorted. If they don't control the narrative, someone else will. The children need to speak together, clearly, undeniably. They need to show the world that this is not one delusional child. This is a pattern. This is real. David Carson stands and signs emphatically, "No, absolutely not. I will not put my daughter in front of cameras to be ridiculed and threatened." Emma tugs on her father's sleeve. When he looks down, she signs something that breaks his heart. "I didn't come back to be safe. I came back to be heard." David looks around the room at the other parents. They all wear the same expression: defeat, pride, terror, love. Their children are no longer just their children. They are something more, something older, something that has looked death in the face and returned with a mission. The press conference is scheduled for March 3rd in Washington, D.C. The location is chosen carefully, a hotel conference room with security and controlled access. The announcement brings immediate attention. News outlets from around the world request credentials. Skeptics and believers alike prepare for battle. The government issues a statement calling the event deeply insensitive to 9/11 families. Conspiracy theorists flood social media with theories. Religious leaders argue about the theology of reincarnation, and the children prepare. Dr. Whitmore works with them, helping them organize their memories, preparing them for the questions they will face. Emma is the spokesperson. She will present first, then introduce the others. Rebecca Torres handles the logistics, the media, the security. She has covered war zones. She has interviewed terrorists, but she has never been more nervous than she is now, because this event will either validate the most extraordinary claim in modern history or destroy 7 families in the process. The night before the press conference, Emma cannot sleep. She sits at the hotel window, looking out at the Washington Monument illuminated in the distance. Her mother sits beside her, holding her hand. Claire signs, "Are you scared?" Emma nods. "Yes." Claire continues, "We can still leave. We can go home and forget all of this." Emma turns to look at her mother with eyes that have seen too much. Sarah Mitchell called her sister the night before the flight. She told her she loved her. She told her she would see her at the wedding. She had no idea she was going to die, but I do. I know what's coming, and I'm still doing this, because she would want me to. Claire pulls her daughter close and cries silently into her hair. How does a mother protect a child who has already died once? How does a mother argue with a soul that has lived before? She cannot. All she can do is hold on and hope that the universe has a plan. The morning of March 3rd arrives grey and cold. The children and their families arrive at the hotel through a back entrance, avoiding the media already gathering outside. The conference room is set up with a long table, 7 small chairs, microphones, and more cameras than any of them have ever seen. The children are dressed simply, like ordinary kids, because that is what they are, ordinary kids carrying extraordinary memories. At exactly 10 a.m., the doors open. The room floods with journalists, camera operators, and curious observers. The noise is overwhelming. Flashes pop like dying stars. Emma sits in the center chair, the other 6 children flanking her on either side. Dr. Whitmore sits at the end of the table. Rebecca Torres stands at a podium to the side. She calls for quiet. The room slowly settles. She gives a brief introduction, explaining the purpose of the event, the research that has been conducted, the verification of details. Then she steps aside. Emma stands. At 7 years old, she barely reaches the microphone. An aide adjusts it downward. The room waits. Every camera is focused on her small face. Every reporter has a pen poised. The world is watching. And Emma begins to sign. The interpreter translates in real time, his voice carrying Emma's words throughout the room. My name is Emma Carson. I am 7 years old, and I remember dying on September 11, 2001, aboard United Airlines Flight 175. The room erupts in murmurs. Emma continues, her hands moving with calm precision. I was a passenger named Sarah Mitchell. I was 29 years old. I was going to my sister's wedding. I never made it. But before I died, I tried to warn someone. I saw a man acting suspiciously in the security line. I reported it, I was ignored, and then I died. She pauses, looking directly at the cameras. But I came back, we all came back, to tell you that September 11th could have been stopped, to tell you that warnings were ignored, to tell you that the dead remember, and we are speaking. She sits down. The room explodes. The press conference lasts 3 hours. Each child speaks. Each child presents details that are later verified. Each child describes deaths that match victim reports. The skeptics in the room arrive with smirks and leave with troubled expressions. The believers arrive with hope and leave with certainty. But it is the final revelation, the one Emma saves for last, that changes everything. After all 7 children have spoken, after the questions have been asked and the denials have been issued, Emma stands one more time. She signs slowly, making sure every word is captured. There is one more thing, something all of us remember, something that happened in the seconds before we died. The room goes silent. Every person leans forward. Emma's hands move through the air like she is conducting invisible music. We saw someone, all of us, in different places, at different times, but the same person. A man, watching. He was at the airport. He was in the towers. He was on the planes. And he knew. He knew what was going to happen. We all remember his face. Rebecca Torres had anticipated many things, but not this. She steps forward, her voice sharp with urgency. Can you describe him? Emma nods. She signs while Dr. Whitmore pulls out a sketch pad. Over the next 20 minutes, with input from all 7 children, a face emerges. White male, late 40s, thin, sharp features, cold eyes, a small scar above his left eyebrow. The children have never discussed this before. They have never compared notes, but their descriptions match perfectly. When the sketch is complete, Dr. Whitmore holds it up for the cameras. The image is broadcast live around the world. Within minutes, social media erupts. People claim to recognize the face. Tips flood in. But then something unexpected happens. An FBI agent in the back of the room stands abruptly. He pushes through the crowd and approaches the table. He looks at the sketch and his face goes white. He pulls out his phone and makes a call. Everyone watches. Everyone waits. When he hangs up, he turns to Dr. Whitmore and speaks 2 words that will reverberate through history. We know him. The FBI agent's name is Michael Reeves. He has worked counter-terrorism for 15 years. He was part of the original 9/11 investigation, and he recognizes the face in the sketch, not as a terrorist, not as a hijacker, but as something else, someone else. A man who was part of the investigation, a man who had access to intelligence, a man who appeared in the background of multiple reports, but was never considered a suspect because he was one of them. An intelligence contractor named Thomas Brennan. He worked for the CIA in the months leading up to September 11th. His job was threat assessment. He analyzed chatter. He evaluated risks. He was one of dozens of people who had pieces of the puzzle but never put them together, or so everyone thought. Agent Reeves makes a call to Langley. He describes the sketch. He mentions the children's testimony. And on the other end of the line, someone confirms what he fears. Thomas Brennan disappeared on September 12, 2001. He was never seen again. The implications are staggering. If the children are correct, if Thomas Brennan was present at multiple locations on September 11th, watching, knowing, then he was not just a contractor, he was a participant. But that raises impossible questions. How could one man be in so many places at once? How could he have been at Logan Airport, in the North Tower, in the South Tower, on the planes? The answer, according to the children, is simple and horrifying. He wasn't physically there, not in body, but in presence. Emma explains through signs. We didn't see him with our eyes. We felt him, like a cold wind, like a shadow. He was there in the way a nightmare is there, real but not real, watching but not being seen. The description sends chills through the room. What Emma is describing sounds like something supernatural, a projection, a haunting, a consciousness that could exist in multiple places simultaneously. But that is impossible, or it should be. Dr. Whitmore proposes a theory that sounds like science fiction, but is grounded in quantum physics. There are documented cases of remote viewing, of consciousness extending beyond the body. Intelligence agencies have experimented with it for decades. What if Thomas Brennan was part of such a program? What if he developed the ability to project his awareness, to observe events remotely? He pauses, seeing the skepticism on faces around the room. I know how it sounds, but we are already accepting that children can remember past lives in perfect detail. We are already beyond the boundaries of conventional science. If consciousness can survive death and transfer to new bodies, why can't it also extend across space? The question hangs in the air, unanswered, because there is no good answer. There is only the testimony of 7 children who have already proven they remember the impossible. And if they remember Brennan, if they all saw him in those final moments, then he was there, somehow, for some reason, watching 3,000 people die. The FBI launches an investigation within hours. Thomas Brennan's file is pulled from classified archives. His history is examined. His movements in the months before September 11th are traced, and a pattern emerges. Brennan was present at every major intelligence briefing about potential terrorist threats in 2001. He read every report. He saw every warning. He knew about suspicious flight school enrollments. He knew about chatter regarding planes and buildings. He knew about potential attacks, and he did nothing. But it is worse than nothing, because a deeper investigation reveals something that makes everyone involved sick. Brennan actively suppressed information. He downplayed threats. He convinced superiors that warnings were overblown. He was not incompetent. He was deliberate. He was helping. The question is why? What could possibly motivate an American intelligence contractor to facilitate a terrorist attack? The answer, when it comes, is as old as civilization: money, power, belief in something greater than country. A whistleblower emerges, a former colleague of Brennan's named Patricia Vance. She has been silent for 16 years, terrified of what speaking up might cost her. But when she sees the press conference, when she sees the children describing Brennan, she decides the cost of silence is higher. She reaches out to Rebecca Torres. They meet in secret. Patricia explains that Brennan was not a patriot. He was an ideologue. He believed American foreign policy was corrupt. He believed the system needed to collapse. He believed that only a catastrophic event could force real change. And he found people who shared his belief, people with money, people with power, people who stood to profit from war, from security contracts, from the restructuring of society. Patricia does not have proof. She has only conversations she overheard, meetings she witnessed, suspicions she never voiced. But her testimony adds weight to what the children have said. Thomas Brennan was not just a passive observer. He was an active participant in allowing September 11th to happen. The nation reacts with fury and confusion. How much of this is true? How much is conspiracy? How much is the trauma-induced fantasy of children? The government issues denials. Intelligence agencies claim Brennan was a low-level contractor with no real influence. But the families of September 11th, victims, demand answers. They demand Brennan's files be released. They demand investigations into who else might have been involved. And the children, the 7 impossible children, become the center of it all. They are interviewed repeatedly. They are tested by psychologists. They are examined by skeptics who try to find holes in their stories. But the stories hold. Every detail checks out. Every name is verified. Every moment of their remembered deaths matches documented evidence. They are either the greatest hoax in history, or they are exactly what they claim to be. The reincarnated dead return to speak truth. But truth has enemies. On March 15th, 12 days after the press conference, Emma receives a package at her house. Her father opens it. Inside is a single item, a photograph of Sarah Mitchell taken at Logan Airport on the morning of September 11th. She is standing in the security line, and behind her, blurred but unmistakable, is Thomas Brennan. He's watching her. The photograph is not from public records. It is not from official surveillance. Someone took this photo privately. Someone who was there, someone who is still out there. The message is clear. We see you. We know who you are. We can reach you. David Carson calls Agent Reeves immediately. The FBI places the family under protective custody. The other 6 families receive similar warnings. The children are being watched. The people who helped Brennan, the people who allowed September 11th to happen, they are still active, still powerful, still dangerous, and they will not allow the truth to come fully to light. Emma sits in a safe house in Virginia, surrounded by armed guards. She's 8 years old now. Her birthday passed quietly, without celebration. She sits at a window and watches the world outside, a world that both believes her and fears her. Her mother sits beside her, exhausted from weeks of interviews and threats and police protection. Claire signs, "Was it worth it?" Emma considers the question carefully. She thinks about Sarah Mitchell. She thinks about the 3,000 people who died that day. She thinks about the warnings that were ignored. She thinks about Thomas Brennan and the others like him, still free, still hidden. She signs her response slowly. Sarah Mitchell tried to warn someone. She was ignored, and she died. I am Sarah Mitchell, and I will not be ignored again. So yes, it was worth it. Her mother nods and cries and holds her daughter tight, because she understands now. Her daughter did not come back to be safe. She came back to finish what Sarah Mitchell started. She came back to be heard, and nothing, not threats, not fear, not even death, will stop her. 6 months have passed since the press conference. The world has not stopped turning, but it has tilted on its axis. The 7 children have become symbols. For some, they are proof of life after death, evidence that consciousness survives beyond the body. For others, they are pawns in a political game, tools being used to reopen old wounds and assign new blame. For still others, they are threats, dangerous voices that must be silenced before they reveal too much. The FBI's investigation into Thomas Brennan has stalled. His whereabouts remain unknown. No body has been found. No activity on any known accounts. He vanished on September 12, 2001, and has remained a ghost for 16 years. But the children know he is still alive. They feel him, not with eyes or ears, but with something deeper. The connection that was formed in death has not been severed, and Emma, the first to speak, feels him most strongly of all. On a September morning, days before the 16th anniversary of the attacks, Emma wakes with knowledge she should not have. She finds her father at breakfast and signs urgently. "He's coming. David's blood runs cold. Who's coming? Emma's hands move in sharp, decisive gestures. Brennan, he's been watching. He knows we're close to the truth, and he's going to try to stop us. David immediately contacts Agent Reeves. The FBI increases security around all 7 families. But Emma shakes her head. Security will not stop this, because Brennan is not coming physically. He is coming the way he has always come, as a presence, as a shadow, as something that exists between thought and reality. That night, Emma dreams. In the dream, she is back on Flight 175, back in seat 14C, back in Sarah Mitchell's body. The plane is turning, the tower is approaching, but this time Thomas Brennan is sitting next to her. He looks at her with cold, emotionless eyes, and he speaks. "You should have stayed dead." Emma wakes, screaming silently. Her parents rush to her room. She is shaking, signing frantically. "He can reach us, even here, even now." He never stopped watching. Dr. Whitmore is called. He arrives at the safe house within an hour. Emma describes the dream in detail. Whitmore listens with growing concern. He has studied consciousness transfer, remote viewing, psychic phenomena. He knows that shared trauma can create connections, but this is different. This is active, hostile. Brennan is not just a memory, he is a force, and he is trying to silence the children the only way he can, through fear, through psychological warfare, through invading the one place they thought was safe, their minds. Dr. Whitmore makes a decision that will either save the children or destroy them. "We need to confront him," he says. David erupts in protest. Confront a man who may or may not exist, who may be dead or alive, who exists somewhere between reality and nightmare. It is insane. But Emma nods. She understands. The only way to end this is to face it, to bring Brennan out of the shadows and into the light, to force a confrontation not in the physical world, but in the space where he operates, the realm of consciousness itself. Dr. Whitmore proposes an experiment that sounds like something from a horror film. He wants to induce a shared trance state in all 7 children simultaneously, a guided meditation that will allow them to meet in a constructed mental space, and once there, to call out to Thomas Brennan, to confront him directly, to demand answers. The parents are horrified, but the children agree. They are tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being afraid. They remember death. They survived it once. They can survive it again. On September 10th, one day before the anniversary, the 7 children are brought together in a secure location. They sit in a circle, holding hands. Dr. Whitmore guides them into a meditative state, his voice soft and steady. Monitors track their brainwaves. Medical personnel stand by. The parents watch from behind glass, terrified and helpless, and the children descend into a place that exists only in consciousness, a place where the dead can speak to the living, and where the living can confront those who should be dead. In the mental space, the children find themselves standing in an impossible location. They are at Logan Airport, but it is frozen in time. September 11th, 2001. 7:45 a.m. Passengers walk past them in slow motion. Security lines stretch endlessly. And standing in the center of it all, watching them with a small smile, is Thomas Brennan. He looks exactly as they remember. Thin, sharp, cold. He speaks, and his voice echoes in ways that hurt. "You should not have come back. The dead are supposed to stay dead." Emma steps forward. She signs, and in this place, her signs become words. "You helped kill us. You let it happen. Why?" Brennan's smile widens. "Because the world needed to change. Because sometimes you have to destroy something to rebuild it better. Because I was part of something larger than myself. And because," he pauses, looking at each child in turn, "no one would ever believe me if I told them." Brennan begins to speak. And what he reveals is more terrible than any of them imagined. He was part of a program, not CIA officially, deeper, darker, a group that believed the only way to reshape global power structures was through controlled catastrophe. They did not plan September 11th, but they knew it was coming. They had intelligence, they had warnings, and they made a choice. Let it happen. Allow the shock, allow the fear, allow the restructuring of society that would follow. Wars, security states, massive transfers of wealth and power, all made possible by one terrible day. Brennan was one of many, but he was special. He was the one who made sure warnings were ignored, who suppressed information, who ensured that the attack succeeded. And his reward was supposed to be a new identity, a new life, wealth beyond measure. But something went wrong. The consciousness experiments they had performed on him, the remote viewing training, it changed him. He could not fully return to his body. He became stuck, caught between states, neither fully alive nor fully dead, existing as a presence, a shadow, a ghost in the machine of reality. The children listen in horror. Emma signs, her words sharp as knives. You killed 3,000 people for money and power. You're a monster. Brennan shrugs. I'm a realist, and you children are proof that I was right. Consciousness survives. Death is not the end. So what did those people really lose? They just moved on to the next phase, like you did. The casual cruelty of his words ignites something in Emma. Not Sarah Mitchell's memories, not borrowed trauma, but her own rage. The rage of a child who has been forced to carry the weight of an adult death. The rage of innocence confronted with pure evil. She steps closer to Brennan. We came back to expose you, to tell the truth, and we have. You've lost. Brennan laughs. Have I? Where is the proof? Where is the evidence? You have the testimony of children who claim to remember past lives. Do you know how easy that is to dismiss? You have changed nothing. The people who were with me are still in power, still protected. And I, he spreads his arms wide, I am beyond reach. You cannot touch me. You cannot hurt me. I am nowhere and everywhere. I am the proof that consciousness can be weaponized, and when they perfect what was done to me, when they create others like me, the world will belong to those who control awareness itself. But Brennan has made a mistake. He has revealed too much. He has confirmed everything, and in this mental space where consciousness takes form, where thought becomes reality, the children have power they did not know they possessed. They are 7 souls who died violently and chose to return. They carry the weight of 3,000 deaths. They are not just witnesses, they are catalysts. Emma looks at the other 6 children. They understand without speaking. They join hands. They focus. And they do something impossible. They pull. They pull at Brennan's presence, at his scattered consciousness, at the pieces of him that exist across space and time. They pull him together. They force him to coalesce. They make him real. And in making him real, they make him vulnerable. Brennan's expression changes from smug superiority to sudden fear. He tries to pull away, to dissipate, to escape back into formlessness. But the children hold him. 7 small hands gripping something that should not be touched. And they pull him out of the mental space and into the physical world. In the room where the children's bodies sit in a trance, something impossible happens. The air between them shimmers and splits. Reality cracks like glass. And Thomas Brennan materializes, not fully, not solidly, but visible, a ghostly form, translucent and flickering, but present. The medical staff stumbles back in shock. The parents scream. Agent Reeves pulls his weapon. But Dr. Whitmore understands. The children have done what should be impossible. They have forced a consciousness that existed only as awareness into partial physical manifestation. Brennan is there, not alive in the conventional sense, but there, visible, present, and most importantly on camera, because Rebecca Torres, always thinking ahead, always documenting, has cameras recording everything, and the world is watching live. Brennan's image, his partial form, his confession, it is all being broadcast. The truth is out, undeniable, irrefutable, impossible to dismiss. Brennan's form flickers and rages. He screams without sound. He tries to break free, but the children hold him in place long enough for the world to see. long enough for the recording to circulate, long enough for intelligence agencies to scramble, for government officials to panic, for the people Brennan mentioned, the ones who were with him, to realize they are exposed. Then Emma releases him. They all do. And Brennan's form dissipates like smoke in wind, but the damage is done. The revelation is complete. September 11th was not just a failure of intelligence, it was a deliberate act of allowance. And the people responsible are still out there, still in power, still protected, but no longer hidden. The children have finished what they came back to do. They have spoken the truth. They have exposed the conspiracy. They have made the world listen. And now, finally, they can rest. The aftermath is chaos. Governments deny. Intelligence agencies deflect. But the footage exists. Millions of people saw it. Brennan's partial manifestation, his confession. The children pulling him from nowhere into somewhere. It cannot be explained away. It cannot be dismissed as fraud. The laws of physics may have been violated, but the evidence is real. In the weeks that follow, investigations explode across multiple countries. Names emerge. People in positions of power, people who benefited from September 11th, people who had foreknowledge. Some are arrested, some disappear, some die in convenient accidents. The full truth may never be known. But enough is revealed, enough to change how people see that day, enough to honor the dead, enough to prove that warnings were ignored deliberately, and at the center of it all are 7 children who remember dying and chose to come back. They are hailed as heroes by some, called dangerous by others, but to the families of September 11th victims, they are something more. They are proof that the dead have not been forgotten, that justice, even delayed by death itself, can still arrive. Emma Carson sits in her backyard on a quiet October afternoon. She is 8 years old. She has lived through things no child should experience. She has died and returned. She has carried the memories of a woman who tried to warn the world and was ignored. She has faced evil and pulled it into the light, and now she is just a girl again, playing with leaves, watching clouds, living the childhood Sarah Mitchell never got to finish. Her mother watches from the porch, marveling at the resilience of the human spirit, or perhaps not human, perhaps something more. Claire no longer knows where Emma ends and Sarah begins. Perhaps they are both, perhaps they are neither, perhaps they are something new entirely. Emma looks up and signs to her mother. "Do you think it's over?" Claire considers the question. She thinks about Brennan, dissipated, but possibly still out there in some form. She thinks about the people who helped him, still scrambling to cover their tracks. She thinks about the children, 7 souls carrying memories they will never forget. She signs back. "I think the first part is over, but there will be more. Truth this big has consequences, and you've started something that can't be stopped." Emma nods. She expected this answer. She has always known. Coming back was not the end of the journey, it was the beginning. Because some things are more important than one lifetime. Some truths demand multiple lives to tell, and some souls choose to return not for themselves, but for all the others who cannot. Emma stands, brushes leaves from her jeans, and walks inside. She has homework to do, a childhood to live, and a future that stretches ahead, full of possibilities that Sarah Mitchell never had. She will honor that gift. She will live fully. And if the world needs her to speak again, if more truth needs to be told, she will be ready, because she knows something most people will never understand. Death is not the end, and neither is silence. The dead can speak, and the living must listen. That is the unfinished truth. That is the message. That is why 7 children remember dying on September 11th and chose to come back, not to haunt, but to heal, not to frighten, but to free, not to dwell in the past, but to ensure a better future. And in that mission, impossibly, beautifully, terribly, they have succeeded.